All right, thank you very much for joining me. This is Skullpain back again with another quick kind of comparison video. So today I'm going to compare the Resident Evil 2 with the Resident Evil 2 Remake. So what's a better game, original Resident Evil or Resident Evil 2 Remake? Now, if you look at the other Resident Evil games that were remade, like Resident Evil 1, I think Resident Evil 1 Remake is far superior to the original Resident Evil. That's because I don't really like original Resident Evil, but I love original Resident Evil 2. And then the remake then came along and it's like, is that actually a better game than the original? It's actually hard to tell. So the original Resident Evil, I think, has more content, or a bit more story maybe, and a bit more going on than, well, particularly the story than Resident Evil 2. There seems to be a lot more. I don't know if it's in the files that you collect that gives you kind of more information, or I don't know, in general, is it a longer, slightly longer game? Because I know you can plow through Resident Evil 2 Remake in no time, which you can also do in original Resident Evil 2 if you have the infinite rocket launcher, etc., stuff like that. Or if you're like me and you've just played it so much, scenario A, scenario B, and then scenario, you know, the scenario opposite with Claire and Leon, and then to get Tofu and to Hunk as well, you can, like muscle memory, just run around the police station and then down to the labs. But so original Resident Evil, you know, they're two different games as well. Original Resident Evil has the stationary kind of pre-rendered backgrounds with the 3D characters or the 3D assets on the pre-rendered backgrounds, whereas Resident Evil 2 is sort of remake is over the shoulder kind of, you know, like fully 3D environments. So like obviously graphically, you know, Resident Evil 2 Remake is going to be better. Gameplay wise, I probably prefer Resident Evil 2 gameplay wise, simply because you have more control over the character. I mean, the classic gameplay of Resident Evil 2, the original, with the tank controls, and you know, it's difficult to control. It's difficult to control. But after a while, you kind of get used to it. And you can run around zombies no problem. The areas are smaller as well. I know in Resident Evil 2 Remake, there is a lot of tight corridors. It's more difficult to run around the enemies than in like other games like Silent Hill, where you know it's just a kind of a big area a lot of the times, not exclusively obviously, because there are tight corridors as well, but it's a lot easier to run around enemies. But I don't know, and the sound, I don't know, I just like the sound of the original Resident Evil 2 a lot better as well. The voice acting is good. I like the way they made Leon look more his age. A lot of people said that, like, Leon is a very, very young cop, rookie cop in Resident Evil 2, and he looks a lot younger in Resident Evil 2. I like the motion capturing, you know, like the remake, and the motion capturing, and Claire as well. What I don't like is in the second game is they didn't take a lot of the things that made Resident Evil 2 original good and then transfer them to the second game. So they didn't really do the kind of the different scenarios, or the extremely different scenarios. Like Resident Evil 2 original, like you start off in different areas with Claire and Leon, and basically like the game, it's significantly different. I know it's a lot of the same areas are repeated and all that, but it's noticeably different, like what scenario you're doing. Whereas in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's not really, you know, like the same difference in what scenario you're doing. As it is in the first game, and plus there's 4 scenarios in the first game you can do, whereas there's not that many in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Plus in Resident Evil 2 Remake, the bonuses for like completing the game, I think they could have been a lot better. They did the Ghost Survivors, but that wasn't really that good, to be honest. That didn't really hold my interest at all. Whereas in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it was clearing all the scenarios and then getting Hunk and then getting the infinite rocket launcher, all that stuff. That was still in its infancy though, you know, there wasn't that sort of, once you complete the game, you go back and complete it again for kind of more stuff. That wasn't really like a common trait. Well, it wasn't very common in a lot of games at the time, whereas today it is like, you know, after you complete the game, there has to be some reset or replay value. There has to be something else to do, or something that you've missed, to kind of keep you coming back to it. Because Resident Evil 2 and Remake, they're very short games. If you think about it, you can plow through them in no time, especially if you know where you're going, or if you're very, very used to playing it, you can plow through them in no time. So what's a better game then? Is Resident Evil 2 Remake or original Resident Evil 2? Which one's better? For me, I still like original Resident Evil 2 better. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the nostalgic value. I had it when I was a lot younger. I really liked it. I played it to death, like start to finish, no problem. Remake is good. It's a good like nostalgia trip as well, but I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be as much story in it as there is in original Resident Evil 2. Like there's a lot more with like the police chief, like Irons, where he's with the girl, there's a lot more made of that than there is in the second one. And there seems to be a lot more made of Sherry as well than there is in the second one. I know the sections with Sherry are annoying in both games, though. They couldn't seem to fix that. They couldn't make like the Sherry section a bit better. Yeah, there's just more about like Ada's involvement as well. It's not really clear what Ada is doing in the second one at all. She seems to be just like showing up and kind of being a love interest for Leon. I thought Leon and Claire in the remake could have interacted more as well. There was very little interaction at all, which was disappointing. Like that was one thing they could have done in the remake, was make, because they had like enough time to kind of figure out, you know, like how to do the story where Leon and Claire interact with each other, because they seem to interact with each other more in the first game than do the second game, which is strange. But yeah, those are my thoughts. So what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, and what do you think, which is better, the original Resident Evil or the Resident Evil remake? Like, what's a better game? So thank you very much for joining me. If you want to give me your thoughts, you can write them in the comment section. Alternatively, do a video response yourself. You might think that the remake is better than the original game. It's a very, very tough one, this one, to kind of choose if you only had to pick one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, hopefully in a video response, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks very much.